Hi, I'm Janeane. This is KUCI 88.9 FM in Irvine. Standing by to join me is Jess Devaney. She's producer of the film Pray Away, a powerful look at the Pray the Gay Away movement. And I really thought this film was incredible. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be here.
How did you come up with the idea for the film?
So actually, the director, Christine Salakis, she had an uncle who went through conversion therapy for decades after coming out as trans as a child. And she had been working on the film for a couple of years, developing access and the approach through the perspective of former leaders. And I was connected with her through an executive producer that we often work with at Multitude Films. His name is Daniel Chelfin. And he was an advisor for her through a student BAFTA Awards committee. And he knew that I grew up queer and evangelical in Central Florida and would just have a personal connection to this. And I saw the materials that Christine had and the access that she had. And it was to people who were household names in my home and church growing up, and whose books I've read or whose talks I've seen. And not only that, not only did she have incredible access to this range of leadership, but she also was approaching it with a real nuance and complexity that understood that this movement thrives on internalized homophobia, and then that being wielded outward. And that approach and that understanding, I was like, this is a film we have to be involved in.
Was it hard to get subjects to share their very personal stories?
Christine is a really impressive new director, and I'm excited to bring her work to audiences. And she has a real sensitivity and structured the shoots for this film. We had really, really small, intimate crews. Christine herself often ran sound in order to keep the people in the room less, so that the interviewees could really feel that intimacy. And so that was a really big contributing factor. And a lot of people often ask, particularly about Jeffrey, who is the person in the film who identifies as formerly trans, how'd you get his participation? Why would he do that? And we were very forthright about the perspective of the film overall, and why we wanted him to, show his perspective as a current leader in the movement of conversion therapy. And he agreed to participate fairly swiftly. And we just showed him the film a couple of weeks ago in Tennessee. We went in person to screen it for him ahead of the launch, and he shared that he felt really accurately represented. And even though the overarching film disagrees with his perspective. Yeah.
It's so interesting how first of all, I love the structure of the film, because a lot of people walk around in life thinking, what's wrong with me? I don't, I shouldn't be like this. They live with a tremendous amount of guilt. And Exodus, that started in the 70s. Wow. I mean, I love the whole shift of people being part of that. And then the survivors, and I won't give too much away, but just how they're living their true selves right now.
Yeah, so prior to the period where the American Psychological Association, defined homosexuality as a mental disorder, in that phase of history, all therapists, for them, many licensed therapists, were conversion therapists. And then when that was overturned, the church kind of stepped up and filled this gap. And now we have many unlicensed pastors and just people in ministry who have no background in psychology or psychiatry or any form of therapeutic practices, running these programs and doing this work, which is just incredibly wild.
It is. The statistic that is at the end of the film, 700,000 people have gone through conversion therapy.
Mhm.
That's a huge number.
It's really, really prevalent, and something that was interesting. We made this movie to show that conversion therapy is still happening now. It's not a thing of the past, and
Mhm.
it's happening widely. And the primary response of mainstream evangelical Christians to LGBTQ folks in their communities is some form of conversion therapy, that either through changing in their sexual orientation or celibacy and not practicing, that they overcome those attractions and those feelings. um, and it was also really interesting in raising financing for the film. We got a lot of questions about, like, is this still really happening? It's mostly like coastal LA, New York kind of based financiers and funders. And many wondered, like, is this the most urgent issue in the LGBTQ community? Like, as though, A, we can only tell stories about our trauma, or B, we have to like rank what is the most urgent. And that process was really telling in terms of what progressive communities who are not queer
Yeah.
um, perceive in terms of the oppression and the function of social homophobia and transphobia.
I mean, I think it's really comes down to a mental health issue,
Mm,
a huge mental health issue, which is
absolutely.
on the forefront right now. I mean, it was here and before the pandemic, and now it's, increased because of the pandemic. So I think you coming out with this film is very timely and is very essential because, people still walk around thinking they have a say in people's sexuality when it comes down to a personal choice, And I just thought the film really captured just the struggles
Mm,
and the emotional, mental duress that people experience.
yeah, absolutely. It's really that, it doesn't matter the debate of whether conversion therapy works or not. It
Right.
doesn't. It's rejected by every mainstream psychological organization. At the same time, regardless of whether it works or doesn't work, we want the film to show that it causes harm, and it consistently causes
Definitely.
harm.
Yeah.
And I really see that through Julie's story and the
Yeah.
survivor circle, and
Sure.
yeah,
Well, and then you think about the people that were part of the conversion therapy that have come out as gay,
absolutely,
you know, that they
absolutely.
were thinking, oh, I need to do this. I need to get this out of me and live a different life when they were really denying who they were.
Yeah. And it's really complex in that, folks, LGBTQ folks in faith communities who want to remain a part of those faith communities are held out this kind of carrot of hope that they can be like free from their queer desires, and that is like the path toward righteousness, or that's the path toward getting to be a part of this community. And it's a really false and damaging, harmful carrot.
Definitely. Definitely. Like you have to choose
Yeah.
one or the other, you know? I remember reading Glennon Doyle's book.
Hmm.
Okay. So there's an example where she can live her true self in her and her be genuine to her life and be religious,
Hmm.
and her faith is very accepting, right?
Hmm.
I mean, not everybody is. I remember her saying how people would criticize her, but she is who she is, and she's still a religious person, you know?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's a number of affirming communities of faith all around the country, but we also wanted to get at in the film the way that the religious right particularly weaponizes homophobia to drum up fear among the voting base in order to push policy or put
Yes.
people in office. and
Um,
and you see that pretty clearly around the Prop 8 section.
yes. What else would you like people to know about the film without giving too much away?
I would like people to know that the film is going to be available globally on Netflix, and we have on our website, prayawayfilm.com, a number of mental health resources, including a discussion guide for viewers that can help with if folks want to do, screening parties, like
Yeah,
virtual viewing parties, or if they just need grounding exercises, support hotlines, legal support, or other kinds of support in the wake of their viewing experience.
that's great. And what can people expect? Because we didn't have you give a synopsis of the film.
Right. So Pray Away really looks at the history and continuation of the Pray Away the Gay movement through the eyes of former leaders who have since denounced the movement, as well as a survivor of conversion therapy and a current leader of today's front line of the movement.
I love it. Anything else you'd like to add about the film?
I don't think so.
Okay. I want to ask you this. What did it feel like to finally have this done, to have this film made?
This was a really wild experience in that we finished the film and we're set to premiere at Tribeca 2020 and got the news about 6 weeks before the festival, all geared, we were firing on all cylinders toward the
Sure.
launch. And then the festival quickly pivoted to virtual, and we had to make the call about what would be the best strategy to sell the film and secure the kind of mainstream global distribution that we wanted. And many films took the virtual film festival route, and I loved seeing the creativity of those different launches. And we were like, okay, we're gonna hold this film because of the way that we want to structure our engagement campaign around the film. We need like a high profile and global kind of launch, and that needs
Sure.
to be coordinated.
Okay.
And so we held back the film completely. We just did a few select reviews alongside the Tribeca 2020 festival with no screenings at all, no
Wow.
virtual screenings, and held back the film, sold it to Netflix, and debuted at Tribeca 2021 in person, outside. And so it was the most long anticipated launch after a film's completion. And now we get to bring it to audiences around the world tomorrow.
But think about it. You just said, oh, I sold it to Netflix. I mean, maybe waiting.
Yeah.
Waiting
Yeah.
was probably a good thing.
And getting to work with Ryan Murphy and
Yeah.
the platform that he brings is just really,
Right.
we couldn't have asked for anything.
Yeah. I also feel like younger generations watching this will feel heard. They will feel a sense of not being, just not loved, not accepted, because I'm sure so many people are not loved and accepted, but just knowing there are people that, can relate to what they're going through.
I really hope so. And we have been hearing from a number of survivors as well as youth who are currently experiencing conversion therapy and are organizing watch parties
Right.
with their peers. And we're getting messages on our social accounts every day. And that has been really, really inspiring.
Right. One thing that struck me too, it was earlier on in the film, I forget who said it, but they were saying how, things happen to people, whether it's physical violence or whatever it is, they don't have a good relationship with their parent, and then they become gay. And I'm thinking, okay, but they're more fulfilled perhaps, that they have this love, it's same-sex love, but who's to say that that is wrong?
Yeah. It's so interesting, this whole, there's like the Christian rationalization for what makes people gay. And then, our community's, queer rights movement really took the approach of like born this way. And for some of my friends and ex-partners and whatever, it really felt born this way. And for me, that wasn't my exact experience. And I don't want to have to justify my queerness as like innate and
Right.
immovable for it
Yes.
to be accepted and
Yes.
a gift and a treasure.
Right. Recently a family member said to me, um, she's in her 80s, that a neighbor is used to be married, but now they have a partner and it's a woman. And my reaction was, great,
Yeah,
and she needed a little perspective. She goes, yeah, I guess you're right.
yeah,
Should she be alone and lonely, or she found love later in life? Yay.
yeah. It's exciting. May we all be so lucky.
Right. Exactly. Can you
Yeah.
throw out your website one more time?
Prayawayfilm.com.
Okay, fantastic. And if people want to reach out to you, are you on social media or anywhere to be found?
Also at Pray Away Film on all of the usual suspects.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jess. I really enjoyed
So
chatting with you.
really great.
Congratulations.
Thank you.